Chapter 23. Exploded. Mr. Long's shoulder was injured, causing him to howl in pain. As he howled, he cursed at Maria. "You little bitch. I'll kill you later. Come out if you dare." Bang, bang, bang. As a threat, he swung his machete a few times at the other half of the door. Hearing the noise, Maria couldn't help but tremble, afraid. But with half the door still between them, how could she shoot her crossbow? Filled with fear, Maria made a decision. She moved to the other side of the door. Stretching out her palm, a small red fireball appeared in front of it. Gradually, the fireball turned yellow, then white, followed by cyan, and finally light blue. Magic power continued to compress within the fireball. Feeling it was ready, Maria pushed forward. Instantly, the light blue fireball struck the door. Boom! Half the door was blasted open. The terrifying explosion, along with shards of the shattered door, flung the cursing Mr. Long outside into the air. Thud! Mr. Long's body crashed heavily into the rain. He tried to grab something, but found that even his right hand was gone. He attempted to crawl away, but his legs were unresponsive. The torrential rain drenched him, making him feel like he was in boiling water, with excruciating pain all over. Just injured, his body's protective mechanisms kicked in, numbing him mostly, with the pain just bearable, allowing him to remain somewhat conscious. "Don't kill me! Don't kill me! I was wrong!" Mr. Long cried out in anguish, pleading for mercy. A crossbow was scary enough, but explosives too? Madness! Maria was also shocked by the explosion. The door she wanted to protect was destroyed by her own hand. What if someone comes again next time? Maria looked at Mr. Long, who was begging in the rain, lifted her crossbow, hesitated slightly, and a bolt shot into Mr. Long's forehead, ending his suffering prematurely. Seeing the silent body, Maria's fear slightly subsided. However, dealing with the body was problematic. As the torrential rain had just begun, the groundwater was less than 5 centimeters deep, not deep enough to wash the bodies away as it had done before, especially the later killed burly man's body, which was too large. Using the water ball spell to move them, Maria shook her head. The blue fireball had consumed too much of her magic power, and she couldn't muster enough to move the bodies for now. Finally, Maria pushed the thinner body down the steps. Hopefully, the torrential rain would continue until tomorrow. That might create enough depth and force to carry away the two bodies. The only remaining issue was the destroyed door. Hopefully, any potential troublemakers would be deterred by the sight of the two bodies on the ground and not enter the villa. For safety, Maria returned to the second floor of the villa and lit a candle in the living room. The candlelight lit up most of the living room, providing some comfort. But if someone came upstairs and saw her in the candlelight, it would be dangerous. Thinking of this, Maria retrieved a few large cardboard boxes from her magical space and placed them in the living room. Then, she found a box and climbed inside. The darkness inside the box made her feel safe. If someone entered the second floor, she would shoot arrows at them from inside the box. Under normal circumstances, intruders would probably check the rooms first for anyone. Before she knew it, Maria fell asleep inside the box. The next morning, Maria woke up and stood up from the box. It seemed no one had intruded further during the night. Looking down from the second floor, the outside water had reached about 10 centimeters deep and looked quite swift. However, the bodies at the door hadn't been carried away yet. With more rain, it should be possible. Maria looked towards Lily's room, wondering if Lily was better yet. Viral flu usually takes about 5 days to recover from, and overnight healing isn't realistic, unlike in anime. This presented a new problem for Maria. The villa's main gate was destroyed. Where should she take Lily to stay? The other villas nearby had been lived in before, and she wasn't sure if anyone was there now. The villa at the northwest corner, near the wild forest, worried her due to potential ground collapses, so she didn't want to stay there. Her original villa had its door damaged, and fixing it seemed pointless. Maria looked at the staircase leading from the first to the second floor. Thinking about the power of her blue fireball, Maria considered whether to blow up the staircase, perhaps making the place safer. "Maria!" Lily walked out from the room. Seeing Maria standing in a box, Lily blinked, puzzled. "Lily, are you feeling better?" Maria asked. "Thanks, Maria, but I don't think I'm better yet," Lily replied. "All right, then keep resting. I'll prepare breakfast for you," Maria said, stepping out of the box and heading to the kitchen. A few minutes later, Lily looked at the fragrant fish porridge in front of her and felt her appetite grow. Maria smiled slightly and ate her portion. Lily seemed to have a good complexion. With good luck, she might recover in 3 days. Then, whether they needed to move or not, things would be easier. Additionally, regarding defense, Maria had new ideas. If anyone tried to rush up from the first floor, she would use magic to blow up the staircase. Dawn broke, and the sound of the torrential rain hadn't changed. Mr. Song stared at the unfamiliar ceiling, certain that these days' experiences weren't a dream. He was still alive. Mr. Song's full name was Song Andy. Those who knew him called him Three Knives or Mr. Song. In his youth, he was a martial arts coach. After accidentally killing someone during a challenge, he spent over a decade in prison. He didn't expect to be involved in killing again after honestly doing business for only a few years upon his release. That night, he was severely injured by the strongmen. In panic, he fled into the mudslide area, wading and climbing with all his strength, finally collapsing in the rain. He vaguely remembered being brought to this villa, and upon waking up, felt that all his horrifying wounds had vanished. Though touching the wound sites still caused some pain, it was probably not fully healed inside yet. But that didn't matter. What mattered was his recollection of last night's fight. The strongmen returned, and he easily took down 3 of them. Mr. Song clenched his fists, feeling his strength had increased. Could this be related to his savior? After all, healing such terrible wounds in such a short time was beyond ordinary imagination. Regardless, he owed them this debt of gratitude. He walked to the door, frowning at the bodies floating in the rain. Mr. Song approached, lifted a body weighing over 180 pounds, finding it surprisingly light. He then lifted another body. Mr. Song headed towards the mudslide collapse area, deciding it was better to dispose of the bodies. At the edge of the mudslide area, he gently tossed the body down. Affected by the converging rain, it had nearly turned into a swift stream. The body was washed away shortly after it fell. However, someone appeared on the opposite bank. It was one of the strongmen. Ghost! Seeing Mr. Song throw the body, he looked terrified and fled far away. Chapter 24. Tourists arrive at the tourist area. Alpha City. In a building with extremely tight security, a meeting was ongoing. This time, several astronomers were present. Based on their observations, they speculated that the impending apocalypse was related to the solar system's position above the center of the galaxy, which was itself above a supergalactic river. Under these circumstances, Earth would be subjected to increased gamma rays, cosmic storms, galactic gravity, and dark matter tides, leading to various natural disasters when these factors combined. The astronomers noted that Earth appears above the galactic center about every 30 million years, and each occurrence coincides with catastrophic events like the extinction of dinosaurs. This time, the disasters could be even more severe. Future disasters were expected to increase, especially inevitable earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, which could blanket the globe with volcanic ash and trigger extreme cold lasting centuries, even millions of years. Since the galaxy was currently above a supergalactic river, there might be unforeseen changes, but regardless, these were beyond human capacity to endure. Even if humans could migrate to Mars or a super-Earth over 100 light-years away, it would be meaningless as these planets would also experience apocalyptic disasters. Summing up all the clues, General Cheen announced the official decision. I declare, the Underground City Plan, the Construction Plan, the Celestial Palace Plan, and the Fire Seed Plan are officially initiated. The Underground City Plan involved constructing underground shelters in suitable areas. The Construction Plan aimed to build above-ground shelters in appropriate regions. The Celestial Palace Plan was about creating cities in the sky using current technology. The Fire Seed Plan involved constructing massive interstellar motherships to carry human civilization to a new habitable star system, even if it took thousands or tens of thousands of years. These plans were all for the survival of human civilization. The underground city plan could protect against floods, extreme heat, and cold but not earthquakes or potential volcanic eruptions. The construction plan could withstand floods, heat, and cold and offer some resistance to earthquakes and eruptions, but would face significant pressure from potential future mutations. The Celestial Palace plan completely avoided the previous disasters but was severely limited by technology. A fall from the sky would be unimaginable. The Fireseed plan was humanity's last resort, with the extent of their journey unknown after leaving Earth. After the meeting, General Cheen kept Remy, head of the Special Police, and asked, "Any news from Maria?" Remy replied, "Our people have crossed the Huai River and still need some time to reach Maria's location." General Cheen pondered, then said, "Inform local authorities to try restoring communication in Maria's area. Her predictions are crucial for us." Remy acknowledged, "Yes, sir." In the villa, Maria and Lily had finished breakfast, and Lily, not fully recovered, went back to sleep. Maria looked out the window and continued practicing her sword draws and thrusts. After 2 hours, she began repeatedly practicing her water and fire spells. She felt her magical energy consumed too quickly and hoped to enhance her control and increase her magic through practice. That was all she could do for now. After last night's battle, the security team led by Min and the ruins controlled by Strong did not clash again. Min's side had a few supplies left and feared the giant spider in the cave, fearing it could consume everyone. Strong had just reclaimed some food but had lost many people and was on high alert to prevent further attacks. As for the villa area, with few survivors left, there was no fighting. The Pan Mountain tourist scenic area enjoyed a rare peace. This tranquility was shattered after just a week. This time, it wasn't Min's security team or Strong's ruins but outsiders arriving at the tourist area. Some residents, whose homes were submerged by torrential rains, sought refuge in higher grounds, risking landslides over being swept away in low-lying areas. These newcomers didn't know many on the mountain were also considering leaving due to food shortages. Some were barely surviving on roots, leaves, and bark. Finding something like a kudzu root or sweet vine was a rare treat. Thus, the newcomers were immediately eyed by many hungry residents. The shocked newcomers also found the tourist area in ruins. The once grand tourist building was swept away by landslides. Some familiar structures were bombed into ruins. Villas were gone. It was nothing like they imagined. Though shocked, conditions here were better than below. During the heavy rains, several villages were wiped out in their sleep by floods and landslides. This group of newcomers consisted of 6 parties, 3 village groups, a teacher-student group, a construction group, and an urban refugee group, totaling over 1,200 people. The village groups, with families and supplies, wielded farm tools and numbered over 600. The teacher-student group comprised over 230 high school students. The construction group had around 30 workers from nearby sites. The urban refugee group, about 300, likely from a neighborhood, brought inflatable boats. Upon arrival, they intended to barge in but were halted by the tourism site's condition and Min's security team. Min, seeing the newcomers, wanted them to contribute food for collective distribution. Seeing the crowd, he hesitated and instead asked for a share per person to enter. His reasoning was that as the security team, they needed to maintain order and collect food. The village groups discussed and paid some food to enter. The student group, with their food from the cafeteria, hesitated but complied. The urban refugee group, less agreeable, also paid and entered. Seeing the food, Min was elated, realizing they didn't need to fight as hard with Strong. However, issues arose with the construction group. The foreman said, "Our site was destroyed, and we only saved 2 bags of wet rice. Can you let us in?" The weary workers gazed longingly at the food collected by the security team. Min paused, realizing they couldn't let them in without food. Seeing their tools and desperate looks, he suddenly pointed, "We're all workers, brothers. I won't take your food. Go find a place to stay over there." He pointed toward Strong's territory. Chapter 25. Open the door. We're the rescue team. The news of Min setting up checkpoints to collect food quickly reached Strong. Strong is no ordinary person and immediately dispatched everyone around him. Anyone wanting to stay here has to pay rent. The rent isn't high, ensuring it's within the means of those seeking refuge. This way, they can also secure enough food to weather this crisis. Various groups seeking shelter were eager to argue that they had already paid food upon entry, so why pay again? We don't interfere with the security team's affairs, but this is our property. If you want to stay, you have to pay rent, said someone from Strong's side. Renting and paying rent is reasonable and hard to refute. Seeing Strong's people like this, the other party thought it over and decided to hand over some food as rent. The negotiations were quite harmonious, with no conflicts arising. Strong successfully amassed a large quantity of food. For a long time to come, they wouldn't need to worry about food, just protecting what they had. The only trouble came from the construction team. We only have 2 bags of wet rice left. We can't afford your rent, the foreman said, pointing to the soaked rice. It was difficult enough for them to transport the rice here. Strong said, "We can't rent without payment, as we want to survive too." The foreman's expression changed slightly, and behind him, the seemingly indifferent workers' eyes lit up with a faint green glow as they eyed the food Strong had collected. Strong said, "However, there's a place better than ours where you won't need to pay rent." The foreman stared into Strong's eyes without speaking. Strong said, "Those villas. The manager is dead, you can pry open the door and stay. Some villas have seen deaths, you can avoid those." The foreman looked towards the villa area and said, "Thank you." Watching the construction team leave, Strong wiped sweat from his brow. When there was no food, he wanted to fight the heavens and earth, but with food, he didn't want to continue the battle. This was done out of sheer necessity. Leading his team was too much of a hassle, a group that would abandon their comrades in battle for a single meal. Moreover, many in the team were injured, making a second battle impossible. Also, recommending the construction team to the villa area was a calculated move by Strong. Earlier that morning, someone mentioned that the deceased 3 knives appeared with a corpse in the villa area, which was terrifying. Strong never believed in ghosts, but this was too bizarre. He was certain that what his men saw was human, not spirits. Though unsure of the specifics, he could confirm that Mr. Song was still alive. Previously thought to be an honest man, Mr. Song turned out to be ruthless in action. Once fully recovered, he might come for revenge. If the construction workers could provoke Mr. Song into mutual destruction, that would be ideal. Soon, the construction workers arrived at the villa area. Initially worried about being tricked by Min and Strong, they found the conditions here to be really good after choosing a few unoccupied villas. After days of trekking through the heavy rain, they finally had a place to sleep peacefully. The foreman noted that not only them, but also newly arrived villagers, students, and urban residents were searching for vacant villas. At noon, a horrifying scream erupted from one of the villas. Inside, several human skeletons stripped clean were discovered, with congealed blood everywhere in the living room and kitchen. In addition, there were many smoked meat strips and 4 completely insane socialites. Everyone who entered vomited. Outside, there was movement. Maria stood on the 2nd floor, looking towards the landslide area. She saw an 8-person team dragging 2 assault boats up. These people were fearless, braving the torrential rain and the rapid waters of the landslide area, risking being swept away. Maria watched intently as they glanced around and headed towards the nearest villa. After about 10 minutes, they left the villa and moved on to the next one. Were they planning to loot every villa? Maria was scared and quickly went downstairs. Seeing the half-missing front door, she had an idea. She entered a 1st-floor room, activated her magical space, and collected several large pieces of furniture and beds, then placed them at the front door. In a flash, the door was blocked. Perfect. If these newcomers tried to open the blocked door, they must have malicious intentions, and it would be justified to kill them with a crossbow. Having done this, Maria returned to the 2nd floor and peeked through the curtains. About half an hour later, someone arrived at her villa. "Bro, there must be someone inside. The door's blocked. We're here to search for supplies. If there are people, we don't go in." "Look, Is that blood at the front door? Could someone inside be in danger? If there's danger, we have to help, guys. Let's try to break this door down. Noticing the bloodstains before the broken door, the group made a decision after some discussion. Soon after entering the tourist area, they figured out the situation. There were mainly two factions here. The security team led by Min, the ruins led by Strong, and the villa area under Mr. Long. However, after entering the villa area, apart from discovering the horrific crimes committed by Mr. Long's group, they found no trace of them. Given the complex situation in the villa area, it was safe to assume that group was likely gone. That meant, aside from scattered tourists hiding, there was no one. They could take control here. Anyone in there? We're the rescue team. Are there any injured people? Please move the stuff blocking the door so we can come in. The group shouted loudly, and seeing no response, they began trying to break down the door, the furniture blocking it. The door was tough, but the furniture was easier to break. It just took some time. We have food and medicine. While breaking, they also shouted. Maria was frightened and almost retreated to the second-floor living room. At that moment, Lily, who was resting, came out, shivering with fear. Maria, there are bad people downstairs. Maria glanced at Lily, blinked, and gave up her initial idea of hiding in a box. Lily, it's okay. You keep resting. She took the crossbow downstairs, mustered her courage, and after nearly a minute, spoke. We don't need your help. Please leave. The sound of breaking stopped for a moment. Miss, open the door quickly. We're the rescue team. We have food and medicine, someone outside said. But this time, there was no response from Maria. After a silence of about 10 seconds, they resumed breaking the door, even more excited now. Soon, they smashed a hole through the blocking furniture and saw Maria inside, crossbow in hand, trembling, ready to shoot at any moment. Chapter 26. It used to be all brag. Maria was nervous and scared. These people had smiles on their faces, but their malice was overwhelmingly apparent, without even the slightest attempt to hide it. Open the door. Move the cabinet aside and we can get in, shouted the burly man at the front, wielding an axe with a grin. A loud crack echoed. The cabinet blocking the door was almost split in half. Maria was terrified. Her hand trembled, and a crossbow bolt accurately struck the heart of the axe-wielding man. The axe fell to the ground as he clutched his chest, incredulous as he stared at Maria, who had reloaded the crossbow almost instantly out of sheer fear. He had thought it was just a toy, but who could have told him it was real? Oh my God! The body collapsed, shocking everyone present. Henry, the leader of the small group, was stunned. Someone had been killed. Without any hesitation, they had killed. It was just a young girl, clearly terrified. How could she be so decisive and ruthless? Demir, I'll kill you. A man with a sledgehammer charged forward. The scene felt familiar, and Maria, frightened, her hand shook again. Another crossbow bolt was fired, striking the man directly in the heart. The charging man slammed into the breach and then fell down. Maria was extremely frightened. A third bolt was already loaded. Seeing more people about to charge, Henry bellowed, "Stay where you are." Maria's hand trembled, nearly firing the newly loaded bolt. But the cabinet blocking the door had only been partially chopped through. The remaining people couldn't reach their mark, obstructed by the angle. The bolt couldn't ensure instant kills. If the door hadn't been blown up and could open normally, continuous crossbow fire might have been possible. We were wrong. Please spare my brothers. Give us a way out. Henry dropped to his knees with a thud, shouting loudly. Boss, what are you doing? She killed Demir and the others. Let's all go together and avenge our brothers. With 6 of us, can we not handle a little girl? Surrounding voices erupted in indignation, unable to understand Boss Henry's actions. Shut up. Henry's veins bulged on his forehead as he shouted at his brothers again. How could he explain? How could he say it? Hadn't they seen the 2 brothers who charged forward get instantly killed by a single bolt each? And each bolt hit the heart directly. Once could be an accident, but twice too? More absurdly, he clearly saw Maria's body trembling non-stop, looking scared out of her wits, yet she managed to kill 2 brothers with pinpoint accuracy while trembling. Who could do that under such conditions? It was horrifying to contemplate. Those who wanted to harm you have already been killed by you. We didn't lift a finger. Please spare our lives. We promise not to disturb you again. We will also warn others not to come near. Please, Henry shouted loudly. Maria, looking through the broken cabinet, watched the man kneeling outside without speaking. She hesitated. If those 6 men really wanted to flee for their lives, it would be difficult to kill them all in a short time. But if letting them go meant she wouldn't be disturbed in the future, the offer was quite attractive. Besides, the apocalypse had just begun, with severe snowstorms, extreme cold, and high temperatures yet to come. The number of survivors would only decrease. This man was willing to kneel to save his brothers, indicating he still had some humanity. Thus, the kind-hearted Maria decided to give them a chance. She temporarily set down the crossbow, just watching them without speaking. Thank you for not killing. Sensing Maria's murderous intent had softened, Henry knocked his head on the ground outside. Quickly, take Demir and the others away. Boss, what are you stalling for? You call me boss? Then move quickly. If you don't listen, you're no longer my brothers. Henry was anxious, fearing Maria might pick up the crossbow again. That could mean more brothers would die. It might even cost him his life. Since the apocalypse began, Henry had led his brothers out of the city and into this refuge, relying not just on his experience with violence but his ability to discern the ruthless. Like Maria, who looked extremely frightened but killed without hesitation, was the most terrifying. His brothers had never seen Henry so terrified, and despite their reluctance, after being scolded, they obediently carried the 2 bodies away, carefully maneuvering around the broken cabinet's gap and retreating outside. Once they were in a safe zone, they hastened their pace and quickly left. Having confirmed they were gone, Maria's mood gradually calmed. She had been truly frightened. After a moment of composure, Maria stored the broken cabinet in her magic space, then found a new one from another room to block the entrance again. Having done this, Maria went upstairs. It was almost dinner time, and Maria contemplated making some noodles for Lily. As for herself, she decided on grilled fish. It had been a long time since she last had it. Half an hour later, Henry and his group returned to the villa they had initially chosen. To their surprise, they found it already occupied by a group of people. The occupants were also startled. Why are you bringing in corpses? How unlucky. My goodness. That's terrifying. How did 2 people die? This is our place. Don't bring dead bodies here. Get out. The villa dwellers spoke in confusion. Having lost 2 brothers, Henry was already extremely frustrated. He hadn't expected the villa they chose to be occupied, in disarray, with their belongings scattered everywhere. Initially, when they fled together, he had wanted to kill a few people. Back then, everyone thought it was just a massive flood caused by heavy rain, and even if they disliked each other, they could split up once they reached the tourist area, avoiding each other. There was some semblance of order. But after encountering Maria in the tourist area, he realized order no longer existed here. Someone here had illegal weapons like crossbows, and they dared to kill without hesitation. His longtime good brothers were killed in the blink of an eye. To avoid more brothers dying, Henry abandoned his dignity and knelt, just begging Maria to spare their lives. Now back here, Henry felt he had been too lenient compared to Maria. Place Demir and the others down, Henry said. His brothers placed the 2 bodies in the center of the living room. The occupants of the villa immediately protested, urging Henry to move the bodies. It's pouring outside. You're putting corpses here? Aren't you afraid of a curse? Are you sick or just trying to disgust people? Cursed things. They'll stink up by morning. Move them out now. If you like corpses, go die with them. Henry didn't respond. He took a large machete from one of his brothers, walked to a coffee table, and slashed heavily. MLGB, this villa belongs to my brothers. Who allowed you to take our things? Leave everything behind. Get out. Whoever dares to take my stuff, stay here. A loud crash. The tempered glass coffee table shattered under Henry's blow. The surrounding people seemed to be stunned, staring at Henry but not making a move to leave. Henry pointed his large machete at those standing, saying, "Not leaving, huh? I'll count to 3. Anyone who doesn't leave, we'll chop them down. 3, 2, wait." A middle-aged man stepped forward, saying, "What is this supposed to mean? Can't we talk it out? This villa isn't yours. Anyone can live here. Why can't we? You can't just..." Henry swung his machete down. The blade cut from his throat down to his right shoulder. Blood splattered, covering Henry's face, incredibly gory. The middle-aged man, realizing late, let out a miserable scream, collapsing, unable to make another sound. "Leave or be like this idiot." Henry glared savagely at the remaining people. "Oh, he's killed someone. He's killed someone. Did anyone get this on camera? Report it once we have internet." Seeing this terrifying scene, some screamed, some cried on the spot, and others wanted others to charge ahead. Without another word, Henry, brandishing his blood-dripping knife, rushed towards the woman who had talked about calling the police. His other siblings, equally furious, brandished their weapons, ready to strike. Immediately, those gathered in the hall no longer dared to speak, scrambling to escape outside. Rushed, they left behind their food, luggage, and other belongings in the villa. "Close the door." Henry instructed his brothers to shut the main door and block it with whatever they could find, to prevent anyone from breaking in. By then, some brothers noticed that Boss Henry, holding a doll, trembled in his hands. This was Henry's first time killing. All those talk of dominating 8 streets, while drinking and eating with his brothers had just been boasting. Chapter 27. The little girl is quite humorous. "Boss, are Demir and the others just going to die in vain?" A man looked at the bodies on the ground, his heart filled with resentment. "What if we get some gasoline, make some Molotov cocktails, and sneak over there at night to burn that woman alive?" "Don't be impulsive," Henry said. "It's not that I'm stopping you all from seeking revenge, but I'm afraid you'll get killed if you go. Did you see how she used the crossbow?" She looked terrified, her hands shaking. Yet both Demir and Old Dog were hit in the heart with one shot, instant death. Several men looked at the bodies on the ground, only now noticing the crossbow bolts lodged in the hearts of their comrades, causing a chill to run down their spines. "If we hadn't retreated today, I don't know how many of us would have survived." Henry continued, "Do you remember the damaged gate and the bloodstains at the entrance of that villa? I guess someone tried to break in before and she killed them all. Compare that to the security we've seen in the tourist area, or the people we saw at the ruins. This woman is spotless, as if she's on vacation. She's a ruthless person we can't afford to mess with." As the men listened to their boss's analysis, the more they thought about it, the more terrified they became. Meanwhile, the people Henry had chased away were crying and screaming, braving the torrential rain on their way to the parking lot to lodge a complaint against Henry's brutal actions with the security team leader. "Min, you're the security, we paid for protection. They've taken our villa and killed people. Why aren't you doing something about it?" "Wah. My husband was killed by them. He died so horribly. At least help us get our food back." The crowd arrived at the security team, crying, screaming, and shouting insults. Security team leader Min was overwhelmed by the commotion. All he wanted was to collect some food and live a peaceful life. With so many new people arriving at the tourist area, trouble was bound to happen. He just didn't expect it so soon. Regarding the villa area, Min knew that the Dragons group was very powerful, having defeated Ocean's gang and heavily damaged the stronghold of the Strong faction. But even such a formidable group had mysteriously vanished in the villa area. This meant there was still a formidable force inside the villa area that no one could afford to provoke. "Quiet down, we will investigate this matter." Min stepped out to pacify the crowd. "Right now, there's a torrential downpour outside, and the water level will rise at night. You'd better find a place to stay or you'll be in danger." A woman shouted, "Our food is still there. You took our food and give us this response? Aren't you responsible? Min replied, Damn it, didn't you hear me? It's dangerous at night, your lives matter. Don't our security guards' lives matter? Let me tell you, there were over 3,500 people in this tourist area before you arrived, and now there are fewer than 600 left. Do you know why? They're all dead. This cold statement silenced everyone seeking justice. They had braved the flood and torrential rain to seek refuge, only to find that so many people in the tourist area had already died. At that moment, they felt surrounded by countless spirits staring at them, as if expecting them to join them soon. Those seeking justice left temporarily. They discussed where to stay and where to find food. As for confronting Henry to demand justice, everyone was passing the responsibility. No one dared to step forward. With this heavy rain, where are we supposed to stay? The villa they had finally found was seized by Henry, and the other villas were all occupied. They had nowhere to go. The torrential rain showed no signs of stopping. Staying in it would lead to hypothermia and death. I see a few vacant villas across the landslide. Maybe we can stay there. It's dangerous to get there, though. Better than freezing to death. While it's still light, let's figure out how to get there. They arrived at the landslide area and found that they weren't the only ones with this idea. Many others were also trying to get to the other side. Some had even built a makeshift rope bridge. There was hope now. Lily ate her noodles and took her medicine, then went back to sleep. Judging by her complexion, she was recovering quickly, and if luck was on her side, she might be fully recovered by tomorrow. Maria sipped on some coconut juice and continued eating her grilled fish. The fish was a prime catch from the reservoir, smooth and fresh. Adding some chili made it particularly delicious. If this was how life was every day in the apocalypse, and no one disturbed her, Maria thought it wouldn't be so bad. Though without internet, unable to play games or access the latest TV shows, animations, movies, gossip, etc., life might lose some color, but for her it didn't matter. Just as she thought this, noise came from downstairs. Were the people she had let go trying to take revenge? Maria quickly grabbed her crossbow, loaded it, and peeked through the curtains. It was evening, and due to the torrential rain, it was almost completely dark outside. Maria could only see a blurry figure. There were men and women, old and young, a large group of people. It was clear that they weren't the few she had let go earlier in the day. Had these people been lured here by those she had let go for revenge? Maria went downstairs, her eyes fixed on the door, afraid that they would break in. There's light in this villa. I smell grilled fish. Someone inside is eating grilled fish. Monsters, how can they enjoy grilled fish while others starve? No sense of social responsibility at all. Yeah, they might be just as heartless as those who drove us away, not even giving us back our food. Don't say that. Let's knock and see if the people inside can spare us some food. The crowd muttered among themselves as they approached Maria's villa. Someone with a flashlight clearly saw the cabinet blocking the entrance, which was somewhat unexpected. If it was just the door locked, they would need to knock. But with a cabinet blocking it, couldn't they just push it aside? This cabinet can be pushed. Come on, help me. A strong man stepped forward, leading the way. Both men and women, anyone who was hungry, came forward to help push the door open. The scent of grilled fish wafting from the villa had them eager to get inside. 1, 2, 3, push. With over a dozen people pushing together, the cabinet blocking Maria's door immediately moved back a few inches. Maria was terrified. Holding her crossbow, she mustered up the courage to shout, "Stop pushing! Get away from here!" There was silence outside for a moment. Soon a granny's voice came through. "Miss, it's raining heavily outside. We have no place to stay. Can we come in to take shelter from the rain?" "Yes, if possible. Give us some food. Our food was stolen." "Please, you've got grilled fish. Can you spare us some?" Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. They chimed in one after another, making Maria even more frightened. "Leave quickly. I'll kill." How could those people she let go this afternoon be so untrustworthy? It had only been a short while and already so many people had come back. She shouldn't have let them go. If she hadn't, leaving a few more bodies at the door, there wouldn't be anyone coming to disturb her now. There was silence outside for a few more seconds. Then someone laughed. A little girl with such a pleasant voice, trembling with fear, saying she would kill, was quite humorous. She must have known how hard they had worked to get there and wanted to tell a joke to lighten the mood. They had originally been worried about encountering someone as fierce as Henry inside. But it was just a cute little girl. There was nothing to worry about. "Miss, move aside. We're going to push this cabinet," the leading grandpa shouted, signaling the others to push together. 3, 2, 1. The cabinet was pushed open, crashing to the ground. The people outside shone their flashlights and saw Maria, backed into a corner, shaking with her crossbow, extremely frightened. The grandpa pushing the door smiled, trying to appear harmless as he stepped forward. "Miss, don't be afraid. We're not bad people. We're all good. We just need to take shelter from the rain here. Please give us some food." Chapter 28. Rivers of Blood. "Stop!" Maria shouted loudly. She was terrified, but the man pushing the door showed no intention of stopping. Instead, he quickened his pace. They were famished. The fact that people in the villa had grilled fish to eat indicated that there was a considerable amount of stored food, and there might be others upstairs. Thus, it was imperative to first control this young girl. They were here for a meal. Once they were fed, they wouldn't bother the residents. As long as they left a room for the original occupants of the villa, everything would be fine. The man extended his hand, dreaming of the grilled fish, hot rice, and maybe a small drink later. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his chest and collapsed without warning. In the seconds after he fell, he heard several more bodies hitting the ground, seemingly close enough to touch. But he couldn't see or hear anymore. The only thing he felt was the intense, horrific pain in his chest, like a nightmare engulfing him in an instant. Just before losing consciousness, a question inexplicably popped into his mind. In such dark surroundings, how did she manage to shoot so accurately? In the blink of an eye, 5 bodies lay on the floor, pooling blood that was slippery and sticky. Maria held the crossbow, leaning against the wall, terrified. She hadn't expected these people to be so savage as to barge through the cabinets and then directly charge at her. It was terrifying. A quick reload of the crossbow, and another woman fell. This time, a younger woman. In no time, 8 people were dead on the floor. Those who had intended to follow saw the corpses on the ground, the pools of blood, and let out screams of extreme terror. "Ah! Murder! Murder! How could you be so ruthless at such a young age? I'll fight you to the death." Some, seeing their loved ones killed, charged at Maria in fury, intent on a desperate fight. Then the woman was shot through the forehead and collapsed. The remaining people's psychological defenses crumbled completely. They rushed out of the villa in a panic, fleeing even faster than they had come. Some slipped and fell on the steps, while others ignored them and stepped over their bodies to escape. Others were unlucky, stepped on someone, lost their footing, and fell headfirst onto the marble. Their bodies washed away by the rain, motionless. By the time everyone had escaped, 3 more bodies lay at the doorway. Maria was unaware that some, in their flight, forgot about the landslide area to the east and fell into it, swept away by the rushing rain. New residents in nearby villas, hearing the commotion, all closed their windows and doors tightly, none daring to investigate. They were well practiced in how to handle such situations. Inside the villa, Maria, with the crossbow, huddled in a corner, trembling. Only when the outside was filled with the sound of torrential rain and the living room was completely silent did she begin to calm down. This time, too many had died in the living room, and the smell of blood had become quite strong. Even the strong wind and rain sweeping in through the door couldn't disperse the scent. Maria rummaged through her magical space and found an oil lamp. She used a small fireball to light the oil lamp. This was a difficult find, purchased at a wholesale market before the apocalypse began. The oil lamp, with a glass chimney protecting the flame, ensured it wouldn't go out. The living room lit up. However, the blood on the floor was too much, reflecting and refracting the light, casting a reddish hue over the entire room. Maria temporarily moved the cabinet blocking the door and began to recover the crossbow bolts from the bodies. Each bolt pulled out often resulted in more blood flowing out, making the environment on the first floor even worse. Maria didn't pay much attention. As long as these people couldn't speak, she wouldn't be too scared. After recovering the bolts, Maria started from the doorway, pushing the bodies one by one down the steps into the rainwater, which was about 15 centimeters deep due to the heavy downpour over the past few days. She believed that by tomorrow, the rain would have washed away all the bodies. It took about 20 minutes for Maria to push all the bodies down. After doing this, Maria summoned small water balls to rinse the living room floor. This, however, resulted in almost the entire first floor being flooded with blood water, with very little actually being washed away. Maria blinked, utterly helpless in the face of this situation. Her water magic only included the small water ball spell, which was impractical for cleaning an entire floor. So, Maria decisively gave up. She half-closed the door again and blocked it with the cabinet, then returned to the second floor of the villa. Maria, holding the oil lamp, entered the second-floor living room and saw Lily standing at the room door, watching her in fear. "Maria, is it over now?" Lily's voice trembled. "Yes, it's over. Go back to sleep," Maria said. Lily nodded, went back into the room, quickly closed the door, and covered her mouth. She wanted to tell Maria that her dress was soaked in blood, but she was too scared to speak, even though she knew Maria had once again protected her. Maria didn't pay much attention to it. It was normal for blood to splatter on her when recovering the bolts. She filled the bathtub with water, dropped a fireball into it, and the water quickly heated to a comfortable temperature. Maria dispelled the fireball, removed her blood-stained dress, quickly rinsed herself with a water ball, and then soaked in the bathtub for 30 minutes to relax. The post-apocalyptic world was truly dangerous, and those who break their promises, next time, they'd better not appear in front of her. In the villa nearby, as the boss of a small group, Henry shivered, feeling an inexplicable sense of being targeted by something extremely terrifying. "Boss, are you all right?" His comrades at the dinner table asked with concern. "I'm fine, keep eating." Henry didn't think much of it. Thanks to those who had broken into the villa, they left behind so much food, enough to last quite a while. Just as he thought that, he heard someone shouting outside. "Devil! It's a devil! Ah! Murder! Help, please! Someone, help!" The voices belonged to those who had been driven out earlier that afternoon. Henry stood by the window, watched for a while, then pulled the curtains shut. These people, their fate didn't matter to him.